Get Rich Education is brought to you by Norada Real Estate Investments and Mid-South Homebuyers.
Welcome to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold, giving you information and ideas on the investment that has turned more ordinary people into millionaires and billionaires than anything else, and can provide you with more wealth and happiness than you ever thought possible. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, and educator, Keith Weinhold.
Welcome to Get Rich Education, episode 60. Yes, 60 weekly episodes already. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. We're talking about how to buy and own your own cash-flowing Panama coffee farm parcels today with International Coffee Farms founder and managing director, David Sewell. I am here in person in the sweeping, verdant green landscape of Boquete, Panama today, and my wife and I have just completed what is likely the most interesting real estate investing tour I've ever taken. Now, first, a few days ago, my wife and I had a great tour of Panama City and the Panama Canal before we made this short 40-minute flight from Panama City out here to Western Panama, which is where I'm located now in Boquete. Now, over 1 year ago, I invested here in some of these Panama coffee farm parcels, which are individually deeded to me. And since then, I've watched the operation expand. And just today, we finished the first ever group coffee tour that the provider, International Coffee Farms, hosted. Now, before I tell you a little bit about the tour and before I bring in David Sewell here, first, let's discuss the why coffee question. Okay, this has largely been a real estate investing show. However, this real estate consists of agricultural investing. Coffee is the number 2 traded commodity in the world. It's second to oil. So we're not exactly talking about a small demand market here. But as oil investors have found out more recently, a large commodity market can still mean a volatile market. But the high-grade specialty coffee market, that has been less volatile than oil. Okay, and now I'm not talking about the larger commercial coffee market of lower-grade coffee. That's what's represented by where you see the number on the ticker scrolling across your television on CNBC. But rather, we're talking about that higher-grade specialty coffee market, which is what we're dealing with here in Panama. And that's coffee that specifically grades 80 points or higher on the SCAA scale. That's what specialty coffee is. Now, why else coffee? Well, worldwide, the amount of arable land has just continued to decrease, while at the same time, there are more mouths to feed as the population of Earth just continues to increase. And, you know, a lot of Eastern cultures like Chinese and Indian and such, they have gradually been transitioning as they're developing. They've been transitioning somewhat from less tea drinking to more coffee drinking. And in more developed nations, you have current coffee drinkers that are switching more to specialty coffee, okay? Those ones that are currently drinking the coffee that comes in, you know, a big can, just kind of the commercial coffee farm grade stuff, to a better specialty coffee. In fact, the specialty coffee market recently has seen an almost incredible 16% year-over-year growth. Now, as far as the why Panama question, well, here in the high country of Chiriquí Province, Panama, exists some of the best growing conditions and really some of the best culture for high-grade specialty coffee. And you know, additionally, most real estate investors have all of their hard assets wrapped up in the United States, which is a great place to do business for the most part. But in the event of a major market downturn or a bank meltdown, it might be good to not have every cash flowing hard asset that you own wrapped up in the United States, which is the greatest debtor nation in the history of the world. Even if everything stays great in the U.S., I mean, you probably aren't any worse off for doing this anyway. So this type of investment, you know, really it's what I'm calling it is essentially turnkey coffee farm investing, actually quite similar to last week's episode on turnkey residential real estate investing. So we kind of have a familiar model here. but a different medium, okay? International coffee farms, what they do is they go identify underperforming existing coffee farms. They go ahead and purchase it, often from an old Panamanian coffee farmer that's getting out of the business. And then International Coffee Farms brings in a superb team of local science and agronomy knowledge that knows how to produce high-grade varietals of typically Arabica coffee that yield a lot of money per pound when that harvest is sold on the market. And that's what makes us, as investors, profiteers, okay? So they're transitioning that farm from lower-grade commercial coffee to higher-end, value-added specialty coffee. So that's what I mean when I say that it's a familiar model to turnkey residential single-family home investing, but a different medium. It's coffee rather than brick and mortar with tenants inside it, okay? And it's kind of funny. I had a stock investor ask me about my investment here in deeded cash-flowing Panama coffee farm parcels, asking me with a little skepticism about it. But yet that investor, he owns foreign stock mutual funds inside a 401k. I mean, geez, besides not being able to receive any income from that until he retires, he can't call up or email his mutual fund portfolio manager to ask about how his investments are going or what their future direction is. I mean, with an investment like this, I get plenty of updates from International Coffee Farms. They've always replied to any inquiries I've had, and I bought my lots with cash, and I get annual income checks from the coffee harvest that I can actually reinvest or consume for a better lifestyle here when I'm young enough to enjoy it. So we just completed a 3-day group tour. There were 16 of us on the tour. My wife and I were 2 of those 16 people. And it was a nice free tour where International Coffee Farms even took care of our transportation and our meals, and they did that whether the tour goer is a current investor like me or not. So we walked 3 of the farms up here in this high country, several thousand feet above sea level where the temperatures aren't quite so hot. And walking around the plantations, it's not like we walked through these highly choreographed, precisely arranged rows of coffee, as this production is more about quality over quantity. The best coffee is shade grown. All right, so that means that there are some taller trees mixed in with the coffee plants, sometimes plantain and even orange trees here, and they were scattered here and there to provide that shade and this sort of, biodiversity, such that if you were flying over these, I'll call them plantations from the air, you may not even know that it's a coffee plantation. It might just look like a mixed, low canopy tropical forest to you. Now, it's really remarkable, almost primordially cool to walk your coffee farm parcels. It's just so satisfying to hold those red cherries from a parcel on my own farm and know that I'm dealing with a real asset. And it's just something that's not a derivative securitized by Wall Street where your returns are almost always diluted, okay? So during the open house here at International Coffee Farms offices, everyone got to watch a drone video footage of the farms, see the survey maps detailing the parcels in each existing farm in the network. And, we all got to know each other in a pretty short period of time here. We were all presented with the very first bag of coffee ever roasted from these farms. So backing up, what really happens once the coffee cherries are picked? They're put through a depulper. This strips off the skin, and to produce a washed coffee, which is a popular processing method, the beans are hand washed and then they're fermented for a period of time when they're carefully dried in the sun. So once the beans are dried, they're bagged. They're left to rest for 60 days or more to sort of settle before they can eventually be peeled, classified, cupped, scored, profiled, and sold. And all of that is done for you by International Coffee Farms. Now, I first had International Coffee Farms founder, managing director David Sewell on episode 28, and the crops here have done really well since then. The harvest is ahead of schedule. The provider here has, done rather well on the premise of under-promise and over-deliver thus far. There is one annual harvest, which means there's one annual cash flow payment to investors, which is actually pretty typical for agricultural real estate investments. Well, I'm going to go ahead and bring in David Sewell here, where we're going to discuss this first from the coffee production angle, and then later from the side where you can get in as an investor like I have, and what that would look like for you. We'll get into the investor returns near the end. So let's chat with David. It's really great to be bringing you the show from Boquete, and I am inside International Coffee Farms offices right now with International Coffee Farms' David Sewell. So welcome back to Get Rich Education, David.
Thank you very much, Keith. Nice to have you in our country and in our city and in our coffee farms. Welcome.
Thanks. It's really been a long time coming since my wife and I landed here in Boquete 2 days ago. I've really been taken aback by the landscapes, and I think it's as much or more as what I expected. Being an avid traveler, being a geography guy, I can really appreciate this pristine high country where it seems everywhere you look around, you have a river or a little babbling brook. And it just makes for a very clean, pristine atmosphere. You've kind of got these drifting clouds that pop up late in the day. And it's really, really an inspiring topography here. So I can see why so many expats are attracted to this community and why it feels so livable here and so much cooler than it does down in Panama City. There were some real highlights and takeaways. I learned kind of all sorts of interesting things as we went and walked around the farms. And I think the takeaway that's most different from what I expected is the condition of the plants themselves look so good, and the landscape in these farms that sprawl for several acres over these hillsides around Boquete just really have that green and healthy look to them. So, I can really see that things are coming along maybe even a little bit ahead of where you had projected them to be. Tell me a little bit more about that.
I think you're right, Keith. We are probably a year ahead of where we thought we might be this time in our development stage. We're blessed with having an excellent general manager who's a very experienced person who has hosted the tour attendees all weekend and disseminated his knowledge to them. And he has led the company extremely well in acquiring and developing underperforming commercial coffee farms, which are rapidly turning into well-performing specialty coffee farms. So we're doing well. We have acquired 4 farms so far this year. All those farms have been sold out to new individual parcel owners. We are negotiating on our 5th farm right now, and it's going very well. We're very pleased. We love living here. The climate is perfect. The team we have built is all pulling in the same direction. Everybody's happy. Things are going well. Thank you very much for all of you coming to see that. We're very pleased and proud to be able to show you how the progress has occurred over the last just short 6 or 7 months.
Yeah, it was really great to have the tour and see it in person. So having you as International Coffee Farms founder, having Darren Doyle around with all his value add bites as the sales manager, and then meeting Andres Lopez and really getting to hear about all sorts of things from the condition of the soil to how the elevation might change the condition and varieties that one can grow that are conducive to certain conditions. And, I just learned all sorts of things walking around the farms, how oftentimes higher elevation parcels mean that there's more temperature variation. That makes for more stress on the trees, which can cause more acidity, and more acidity is actually a desirable attribute for one to have. We got to go inside and see how we're changing the lives of the Panama coffee farm parcels, besides getting good returns ourselves as investors, how there is some profit sharing, and how we went and saw one of the old kind of prehistoric looking kitchens and where those families cooked, and how the smoke affected their lives, and how we've been able to replace that for them by giving them more modern looking kitchens with gas and all that. So it was really powerful to see that difference and to see that we're improving the lives of others. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about how you make all that happen and about your team here, David?
We have a strong belief in sustainability in our company. But sustainability is an easy word to say, but not necessarily easy to deliver. And we believe that there's 3 pillars to that sustainability. One is economic, of course, and we need to make money to share with ourselves and our investors and the owners of the parcels. So economic sustainability is important. Environmental sustainability is also important. We must keep the environment in the same shape as we found it now, or in better shape for the future generations. So we spend a lot of time carefully managing the inputs to the coffee farm to be able to produce high quality specialty coffee with the least amount of impact on the environment possible. The third pillar on that table of sustainability is social sustainability. We strongly believe in supporting the people who are the ones that are responsible day in, day out, rain, shine, or whatever, in growing and preparing our coffee for sale to people around the world, which will produce a return on investment for those of us who are investors. Those native, indigenous, Panamanian farmers are very important to us. So we take a 20% chunk of the gross operating profits of the farms, and we put that into a pool for sustainability purposes. That pool is not to be touched for any other reasons other than to support the people who do all the hard work all day long. Right from the general manager, Andres Lopez, through to our farm foreman, Jose Saraceni, to the currently 6 full-time farm hands that are working on the plantations here. That social sustainability manifests itself in the form of higher wages than the average in the area, better living conditions than by far than what are in the area on average. And Keith has alluded to the wood burning kitchens full of smoke that cause cataracts in children's eyes, all the way to eliminating those into fully tiled kitchens with gas stoves where they can cook their food almost in the 21st century instead of back in the 18th century. Better working conditions, easier working conditions, better equipment, much more modern equipment. All of those things go into making it a more efficient farm, a more profitable farm, and a happy farm. We really believe that happy farmers are going to produce happy coffee.
Your business model is essentially to identify assets that are potentially underperforming, going ahead and buying out those farms, oftentimes from an old-time Panamanian coffee farmer, and creating value-add harvests with using coffee science and modern methods. We discussed that a lot in the first show that I had with you, but why don't we talk a little bit about the progress that International Coffee Farmers has had since you were first featured here back early this year?
The progress is manifested in 4 farms acquired and completely sold out to individual owners of those parcels. We've built a general manager and a farm foreman team that work very well together, both professionally trained. One's an engineer, the other one's an agronomist. The engineer doesn't do much mechanical engineering because he's been running coffee farms for 25 years here, and that's Andres Lopez. Jose Saraceni is a graduate agronomist, and he understands the soil management that is so critical to producing these farms. We also have a good team, a lead farmhand, and 5 farmers that know what they're doing and have become very loyal and very reliable people day in and day out serving the needs of the farms. They love the plantations, they like to grow coffee, and they like to be supported. So we're happy with the progress that's happened in those farms. We are proceeding towards putting together our own wet and dry coffee processing mill. In short form, in Spanish, it's called a beneficio. That is a production facility that will take the coffee from the cherry right through all of the necessary steps to produce a green bean that will be for sale and exportable under some very stringent conditions imposed by the specialty coffee associations around the world. So that beneficio or coffee processing mill is in the environmental impact study stage right now. Once that's been completed and approved, we can start turning the dirt, and we expect to have this 1,700 square foot state-of-the-art facility up and running in March of 2016. The benefit to us for that is that beneficio provides handling of the coffee from the seed in the ground to the green bean all in one place. That in the industry is known as traceability. traceability in single origin coffee, which is coffee that comes from one farm or one estate or one plantation, is extremely important. Single origin coffee must be traceable from the seed through the processing facility into the green bean to be of any value to the vast majority of consumers in the world. And I don't mean the consumers that buy the cup of coffee, but I mean the intermediaries in the brokerage world and in the roasting world who really know what they're doing in coffee, and they demand this traceability. So that alone increases the value of the coffee that we're preparing and producing for export. It's a significant number for the increase in the value and the price of the coffee because of the traceability. So a significant development for us is, in fact, putting that processing facility together. In combination with that, there will be a coffee laboratory, and that laboratory, which is where Keith was today with the other attendees on the tour, learning how to cup, grade, score coffee so that you can put it to the tests that are held internationally that are necessary for you to have uniformity in your coffee so everybody knows what they're buying. We'll be adding that laboratory to the building that is in the coffee processing mill, and we'll have our own coffee lab as well as the beneficio. So those are some of the major improvements and changes that have happened in this last short 6 months.
Yeah, we had an awful lot happen. You've picked your first harvest, which really came in ahead of schedule, which sure is going to please us as investors. You've had your first roast. You've had your first scoring for this 0 to 100 point scoring system that the industry goes ahead and uses. We just came off the first tour. We just finished it right here in Boquete a few hours ago. And so, yeah, just dropping back this processing mill, basically giving you that sourcing and that traceability advantage so that you can make that detailed. People want to read a story. Consumers are more willing to pay for a story. The indigenous Panamanian coffee farmers of the Chiriquí province have farmed these lands for generations, and people want to pay for that authenticity, and that's part of the value adding here. So finishing up the tour today, I thought that was pretty remarkable going into the cupping facility. You know, just 2 or 3 years ago, I had no idea there was such a thing as a cupping facility where they went ahead and graded these coffees. We were in this room of a couple hundred square feet, surrounded by these counters, which had this kind of elegant-looking German and Brazilian-made, sophisticated-looking equipment with the general manager, Andres, going ahead and demonstrating the cupping and the grading for us, which is a pretty remarkable thing to do. Everything from taste, fragrance, acidity, and body, and having those attributes in good quality allows us to get more when we go ahead and sell that coffee out on the market. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
That's exactly right. Single origin coffee is tested on a scale with components and attributes that have been decided by the specialty coffee associations around the world, led by the largest one, the Specialty Coffee Association of America. A very difficult course is involved to become what's called a Q grader, which is a quality grader who is licensed to be able to score coffee based on the attributes that have been decided by all these specialty coffee associations. So that has happened to our coffee. El Nino got us a little coffee a little early, so we thought we'd pick it off the trees since it was nice and ripe and ready to go, and decided to classify it and roast it and then cup it and grade it and then finally get a score. Now, we have an idea what that score is. Specialty coffee is 80 points or higher up to 100. Between 80 and 86 is very good coffee. 86 on that scale will get you into the top 3% of the coffees in the world. And I don't believe, I might be wrong, but I don't believe we've ever seen a coffee scored higher than 92.5. So good coffee, 80 points and up. Now, I'm not going to tell you what the score was, mostly because my general manager, Andres Lopez, won't let me, because he says this coffee is going to be way better. And we already quite like this coffee, and we're drinking it on the tour. The tour attendees are taking some of it home. It's what we call young in the business, which means it hasn't had time to rest. Coffee, after it's peeled and after it's processed into a parchment-type coffee, sits around for 60 days and thinks about things. And while it's thinking about those things, it changes its profile and grows its own personality. And a climatically controlled storage facility that we have for our own coffee. Once it comes out of there, then it's aged and ready to go, and it's going to increase in its profile, and that profile will be cupped again, and there will be a number assigned to that. But suffice it to say that we're pretty happy with what we got as almost specialty coffee right now, and we're very pleased with the progress that we've been able to make in the last 6 or 8 months.
Yeah, that was pretty remarkable over the last few days to see that ahead of schedule progress myself, to walk those fields and see some red cherries now, not just some green ones, and then take that all the way to the laboratory where the general manager went through some of his cupping techniques. You're listening to Get Rich Education. My guest is International Coffee Farms' David Sewell. More when we come back. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. Cash flow real estate investors nationwide and worldwide, this is Get Rich Education's Keith Weinhold. Forbes has rated Memphis, Tennessee as the #1 cash flowing market in the world. Our good friends at Mid-South Homebuyers have been Memphis's premier turnkey real estate provider for 14 years with a stellar reputation and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Owner Terry Kerr was born and raised in Memphis. Yeah, he knows the market and has renovated and sold over 1,000 houses in the Memphis area. Find out what their many repeat buyers already know. Their houses are completely renovated, even come with a 1-year builder's warranty and a lifelong rental guarantee. They're a perfect fit for the first-time out-of-state investor or the seasoned investor diversifying their portfolio. Mid-South Homebuyers' friendly staff makes investing easy. Learn more at midsouthhomebuyers.com or give them a call at 901-217-HOME.
Are you having a hard time finding great investment properties? Unfortunately, the best deals are rarely found locally. Successful investing begins with the right properties in the right markets. Norada Real Estate provides everything you need to invest in the best deals across the U.S. Our simple, proven system will help you create real wealth and passive monthly cash flow. Get your free copy of the ultimate guide to passive real estate investing at noradarealestate.com/guide. That's NORADA realestate.com/guide.
This is Rich Dad Advisor Ken McElroy. Listen to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold and don't quit your daydream.
Welcome back to Get Rich Education with our feature guest, International Coffee Farms Managing Director David Sewell, where I've just finished up a 3-day tour where I am right now sitting with David Sewell in Boquete, Panama, where we kind of wrapped up the field part of the tour yesterday with these spectacular, high, winding paved roads to some of these beautiful landscapes that just evoke all this poetry and grandeur with these kind of mist-filled valleys here in the western Panama high country. And yeah, it really was a visual feast for a tourist like me. But yeah, David, so really with the company that's really securing all these great parcels for investors, what do you see as the long-term future of International Coffee Farms for the next 5 or 10 years? Where do you see this going?
Well, the long-term goal, this is a legacy investment as far as we're concerned. It is should be generational. It's something you can leave to your heirs. We have a 20-year time horizon minimum on our pro forma return projections. And these coffee farms have been around for hundreds of years and many generations, and there's no reason in the world why they won't be around for hundreds of years in the future. So a legacy investment where you can pass it on to your family with very significant returns as we progress further down the path of turning these farms around from underperforming commercial farms to specialty farms. That legacy investment encompasses my strategy of being the largest coffee farmer in Boquete within 10 years. I think we can do it in 5. The dynamics of the market here are such that there's a lot of little small holders, people that are older farmers that are losing interest in farming because of their age or their health, and the kids just don't care. They don't want to do the farming hard work anymore. So those farms are coming on the market slowly. So we'll be acquiring aggressively coffee farms on a continuous basis to get us to that goal. That's where I want to be.
And I've seen a lot of benefits to investing here. I am an investor myself. I like that it's completely uncorrelated with the U.S. real estate market, which is, where a lot of my holdings and most listeners' holdings probably are. And, one of the advantages here is that if someone wants protection from a creditor and they own cash flowing coffee parcels in Panama, it's probably going to be pretty difficult to repatriate dollars. So there is maybe an asset protection component to this. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
That's definitely true. Somebody that's living in a litigious society that has some potential risk of being sued is probably going to be sued at least once in their lifetime. That lawsuit will go after the low-hanging fruit, so they'll try and monetize the assets that are the easiest to get at. And as most litigation lawyers are lazy, they will try and get that low-hanging fruit the easiest way they can. And that's natural. That low-hanging fruit, if it's a deeded coffee farm parcel or any other offshore real hard asset, actually, it's very difficult to get at. First, they have to go and find it. Then secondly, they have to petition the legal system in the country that they're going to try and take the asset from for permission to do that. Most of these offshore jurisdictions are not the least bit interested in complying with any of that stuff. Even if you have a charging order against you, most of these offshore jurisdictions will not honor the charging order. So that now makes that asset not low-hanging fruit. And even if they were tenacious and wanted to do what was necessary to get that asset from you, it would take them a 7-year legal battle here in Panama, which they're highly unlikely to win.
Yeah, that's really important to know. I've said it before, this is probably the only investment that I own that I really never plan to sell. And one of those things that helps secure that is the deeded ownership of the parcels. Tell us a little bit more about the deeded ownership before we get into the investor returns.
The deeded ownership is designed to be able to allow our parcel owners to have and own an actual hard asset, a piece of real estate that you actually own. It's yours. You own it. You do what you wish with it. We have a turnkey management agreement with you to manage it as a coffee farm, and we'll continue to do that as long as possible while the property's highest and best use is coffee. But the deeded property process is not simple. It takes quite some length of time to accomplish. We are just about ready to send out our deed contracts for the first farm we acquired, and we acquired that farm in January. It's taken just about that long to get the process in place. It's a learning curve for us, so it'll take a little less time the next time, and less time the next time. And a learning curve for the government here. Nobody in this municipality has ever done what we're doing here, so they had to get up the learning curve as well. But we've accomplished all that now, and those deed contracts will be sent out next week to the initial owners in our first farm, which is called Cuatro Caminos. To accomplish that, we have to acquire the farm. Once we've acquired the farm, we have to complete another survey over top of the entire farm to subdivide it into parcels. It's quite a lot of work for a surveyor to shoot 5 or 10 or 15 different measurement points on each parcel so that we can define exactly what your parcel is, so that when that deed is created, it can be recorded in the public registry properly. So that's quite a lot of work and quite a lot of time. Once that's done, then we can allocate individual parcels to those people who are in that farm, and that's done in the order that they funded. So it's done sequentially, so the sooner you're in and the sooner you're funded, the sooner you're going to be into a farm, and you're going to be allocated parcels in that farm in the order that you funded. Once we have that allocation done, then we can send to you by courier an agreement that allows me to be able to create a deed in the public registry for you on your behalf under the terms and conditions of the laws of the real estate laws of Panama. When that's done, we generally keep the deed here at the law offices of the company's law offices, or you can request us to send it to you and we'll send it to you for your safekeeping, either or.
When you first appeared on the show, you offered a great promotion to our guests, and that was fantastic. What do the pricing and the returns look like today?
Pricing looks today at $18,000 a parcel. A parcel is a half an acre, which is defined as 2,000 square meters here. The return on that parcel is a pro forma internal rate of return of 12% annually. That number is calculated over a slice of time of 20 years. It takes some time in the beginning to ramp up to the returns that are forecast, because we have to turn these farms around from underperforming commercial farms to well-performing specialty coffee farms over a 2 or 3 year period. But those returns build up quite rapidly after that point in time into high double-digit returns annually, averaging an annual internal rate of return of 12% over that entire period.
All right, so just to reset it a little bit, investors can get in by buying 1 half-acre parcel at a time. They can buy as many half-acre parcels as they want, or what's available. They're $18K per parcel, and it doesn't take any sort of accredited investor status, and you're certainly not subject to any sort of credit check or anything like that, or any other sort of qualification to get in. Now, I know a lot of your investors, and I was one of them, bought before they visited and did a tour. Are you going to be offering another investor tour like the one I just finished with you today?
Yes, we are very happy with the attendees at this tour. You are all nice people, and they all behave very well. So what we're going to do is offer another tour again, a group tour, in 3 to 4 months from now, sometime around when the beneficiary or the wet and dry processing mill is completed, so we can show off our newest baby to the next group. Any of you who want to come down here and what we call kick the trees as a due diligence visit before you want to invest, you're more than welcome to do that. And anytime you let us know you're coming, and we'll take you on a private tour of the farm so you can do your own homework and decide whether that's an investment for you want to make. You can do that tour before you make an investment. You can make an investment and then come and do that tour after, whatever you like, or join the group tour in 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, the tour really is unforgettable, and I've got to thank you and Darren and everyone else for making it so easy and pleasurable for us as visitors, from the lodging to the transportation to the meals. It's really been a great experience here. And one way that a lot of investors get in is with using funds that are in their IRA, and I know you help facilitate that for them for a nominal fee. Tell us a little bit more about the IRA investing.
It's a good idea to be able to use an IRA. A lot of doors and a lot of investors who do traditional, what I call traditional real estate back home, are interested in the depreciation tax benefits and things like that. If you do an offshore investment in a coffee farm, none of that's really available to you. So it's a good spot to put IRA funds into. You can then take the returns from the investment, return them back into the IRA, and those funds can say tax deferred for as long as you want. So it's an efficient way to diversify your IRA from traditional paper-backed assets, securities, and other questionable kinds of investments that are not real hard assets like real estate. Doing that also moves your IRA funds higher up the tree so that it's no longer low-hanging fruit. Now it's in your IRA, which is very difficult for somebody to charge against anyway, and it's offshore, so you have to get through the jurisdiction that the asset is in, like we talked about before, so it's double protection. So it's a good thing to do, and it's a pretty healthy return for your IRA, which has probably been struggling for quite some years, trying to get any decent returns for your retirement. So we can help you do that. We've done hundreds of IRA investments where we've helped people take their traditional IRAs away from whomever they got as a custodian now and put it with a self-directed U.S.-based IRS authorized custodian in a self-directed IRA, which gives you virtual carte blanche with your funds to do with as you wish. And one of those uses could be investing in an international coffee farm parcel. Could be many other things too. We'll help you do that.
And you have a $500 fee for helping facilitate the investor go ahead and get hooked up and smooth out all the bumps between that investor and the IRA custodian that they need to have.
Yes, that's correct. We have a standard fee of $500 to just hold your hand, help you do the paperwork, dot the I's, cross the T's, make it as efficient as possible. Don't get caught up in any red tape that takes too long to do anything. It's only a 2 or 3 week process to get this done, and we can introduce you to experienced custodians that we have experience with, that when we call, they pick up the phone. When we write an email, they answer the email, and we can broker it in your behalf so that we know you're getting into a decent U.S.-based, IRS-approved custodian that will do what they need to do for you. So what we'll do for the next little while, expiring February 29th next year, 2016, so the next 3 months or so, is we'll waive that $500 fee for those of you who are Get Rich Education listeners who are genuinely interested in creating a self-directed IRA that you would use to invest in coffee farm parcels in Panama. And that'll be open to anybody that wants to contact us through Get Rich Education, and we'll help you get that done, waive the $500 fee up until the end of February.
All right. In order to register for that, just go ahead and fill out the form at getricheducation.com/coffee. That's getricheducation.com/coffee to use your IRA funds, have the $500 fee waived to go ahead and facilitate your transfer with the IRA custodian. So, yeah, just as we're winding down here, David, anything else that the investors ought to know about the annual harvest, the annual cash flow payments that they get as investors in international coffee farms? Any final takeaways now that we've seen great progress since I've last had you on?
This is not a short-term, quick gain investment. This is a long-term investment. As I said, it's legacy. It takes time to turn these farms around from what we're acquiring to what we're going to be able to produce. So it's patience up front. It's not immediate cash flow. 12 to 15 months after you fund is a reasonable amount of time to expect before we have cash flow coming your way. The cash flow will be fairly small at the start, but it'll grow fairly quickly. And when it starts growing, it grows to pretty ripe numbers. So that is the style of investment opportunity that we have here for people that have the patience to be involved with an annual distribution. We have one harvest here a year, so we can only distribute once a year. Once we harvest the crop, process the crop, store the crop, export the crop, sell the crop, and get paid for the crop. So that annual distribution will begin somewhere between 12 and 15 months on a pro forma basis after you fund your purchase, and will continue annually from there on. We will report to each parcel owner every 6 months, and we'll let you know what happened in the last 6 months on an operational basis. And then 6 months later, we'll let you know what happened in that 6 months on an operational basis. And should there be a profit distribution, then that's when the check would be attached.
All right, David Sewell. Well, I think you're helping me live my daydream, and thanks so much. It was great for my wife and I to be two of the members on your fantastic inaugural tour here from Boquete, Panama. And thank you so much for coming on to the show.
You're more than welcome. We loved having you here, and enjoy the coffee.
All right, so, hey, well, I should mention that 12% projected rate of return does not include appreciation in the land. And thus far, we've seen really significant appreciation in these half-acre parcels since I started watching their prices. Prices just keep rising. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if in the not-too-distant future, we see parcels priced at $20,000 rather than $18,000 like they are now. In fact, I expect that. So one thing I want you to regularly ask yourself as an investor is, how am I doing good in the world? And that's really answered quite satisfactorily here. You know, you're providing Panamanian coffee farmers with a living wage, often for the first time in their lives. The same goes for medical and retirement benefits, often for the first time in their lives. They're finally getting decent kitchens and bathrooms rather than ones that had previously been jeopardizing the indigenous Panamanians' health. So there is going to be another investor tour in March. You can stay tuned for the tour dates. I'll announce those later. Now, to follow up on what I discussed several shows ago, the day after the coffee farm tour, I climbed the highest point in Panama. It's named Volcan Baru. It's at an elevation of over 11,300 feet. Now, of the 16 tour goers here, one of them, whom I had never met before, Dave Williamson of Atlanta, Georgia, whom is a regular GRE listener. He's heard every show. He learned about the Panama coffee farm investment after he heard episode 28. And he and his lovely girlfriend Liz came on the tour, and my wife and I enjoyed our time with them. Then Dave climbed Panama's highest point with me. We began our climb the morning after the tour at 1 a.m. with headlamps on. Okay, it was a foursome. It was I, Dave, and our two Panamanian hiking guides. We left that early in the morning so that we could arrive on the Volcan Baru summit at dawn. because that's when conditions are clearest in order to increase our chances of seeing really what we went up there to see, which was from the summit, we were able to look at the left and see the Pacific Ocean. We could look over to the right and see the Atlantic Ocean in the form of the Caribbean Sea. So from our feet on the summit, we could see both oceans at the same time. We could also look straight out in front of us and look into Costa Rica at the same time, too. So it was a 10-hour round trip, and it was several thousand feet up above the coffee farms. And I swear I needed every last stitch of clothing up there. I totally underestimated how chilly you could really get right there on the roof of the entire country. So, I mean, I was really scrambling. I looked like a bandit in the photos, just scrambling for any piece of clothing I could have shortly before the hike, realizing it was going to get cold up there. I mean, can you imagine how bad that would have sounded if an Alaskan like me came to Panama and caught hypothermia, an Alaskan in Panama? So thank goodness I escaped that. But yeah, Dave Williamson of Atlanta, Georgia is clearly the Get Rich Education Listener of the Week and a very bright guy with good investor experience. And, you know, gosh, I'm really impressed with the intelligence and diligence of the GRE listener. And thanks for your companionship in trekking to Panama's highest point with me, Dave. Unbelievable. So, and yeah, you might have even appeared more intelligent than me for launching the idea of climbing a nation's highest point in the middle of the night. But gosh, I mean, really, of all the things you get to do in life, the things that you never thought you would get to see, to have your own 2 feet deliver you to the point where you can see 2 disparate oceans at once. I mean, shall I even go as far as to call it the highest piece of real estate in the country? So build passive cash flow, see when you're young enough to enjoy it. I mean, gosh, in life, go and do beats wait and see. So getting back to the investment, as an investor, you get a lot of updated information in emails. You get more than just the updates every 6 months, which are more specifically just about the investor returns. You get lots of great photos from the farms and the farmers. Now, you know, you're probably not going to get a loan anywhere for a foreign agricultural investment. You can invest with either cash or with IRA funds. So, well, speaking of go and do beats wait and see, the best action item for you right now is to go to getricheducation.com/coffee. That's where you'll be the first to learn about whether this investment might be right for you. You'll learn when the next coffee farm tour dates are. You'll get the details about the projected rates of return, asset protection, what the tax treatment's like for this investment. And you also get that generous $500 discount off the IRA setup fee, all at the same time. Thank you to International Coffee Farms for that. So again, that's at getricheducation.com/coffee. In order to have the latest, most comprehensive investor reports sent to you, go ahead and use that address. Of course, doing so does not obligate you to anything. That would be awesome if you were an investor right alongside me. And, you know, people say that money doesn't grow on trees. Well, here in coffee land, it sure does. Unlike tenants, the trees are always quiet. They never pay the rent late. They show up and they know what to do every day. All right, so, well, from here in idyllic Boquete, Panama, on this beautiful isthmus of tropical land that bridges 2 continents, thanks to our guest, David Sewell, thanks to everyone at International Coffee Farms for hosting an unforgettable tour, including Darren Doyle and Deborah Sewell, and much thanks and gratitude to the hardworking Panamanian coffee farmer. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold, signing off from Boquete, Panama. I'm grateful because I've been living my daydream down here. Now go out there and don't quit your daydream.
You've been listening to Get Rich Education, telling you what the wealthy won't tell you about real estate and investing. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to visit iTunes and leave your comments.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.